In this video, we will introduce the prep for NSE 5_FNC_AD_ 7.6 Fortinet NSE 5 FortiNAC-F 7.6 Administrator. What is NSE 5_FNC_AD_ 7.6 Fortinet NSE 5 FortiNAC-F 7.6 Administrator? NSE 5_FNC_AD_ 7.6 Exam details. Core knowledge areas tested in the NSE 5_FNC_AD_ 7.6 exam. Best study strategy to pass the Fortinet NSE 5_FNC_AD_ 7.6 exam. 1. An administrator wants FortiNAC-F to return a group of user-defined radius attributes in radius responses. Which condition must be true to achieve this? A. The requesting device must support RFC 5176. B. Inbound radius requests must contain the calling station ID attribute. C. The device models in the inventory view must be configured for proxy-based authentication. D. Radius accounting must be enabled on the FortiNAC-F radius server configuration. 2. Refer to the exhibits. What would happen if the highlighted port with connected hosts was placed in both the forced registration and forced remediation port groups? A. Both types of enforcement would be applied. B. Enforcement would be applied only to rogue hosts. C. Multiple enforcement groups could not contain the same port. D. Only the higher-ranked enforcement group would be applied. 3. When configuring isolation networks in the configuration wizard, why does a Layer 3 network typo allow for more than one DHCP scope for each isolation network typo? A. The Layer 3 network type allows for one scope for each possible host status. B. Configuring more than one DHCP scope allows for DHCP server redundancy. C. There can be more than one isolation network of each type. D. Any scopes beyond the first scope are used if the initial scope runs out of IP addresses. 4. A user was attempting to register their host through the registration captive portal. After successfully registering, the host remained in the registration VLAN. Which two conditions would cause this behavior? Choose 2. A. The wrong agent is installed. B. There is no agent installed on the host. C. The port default VLAN is the same as the registration VLAN. D. There is another unregistered host on the same port. 5. When configuring FortiNAC-F to manage FortiGate VPN users, an endpoint compliance policy must be created for the integration. Why is the endpoint compliance policy necessary for this type of integration? A. To designate the required agent type. B. To validate the VPN user credentials. C. To confirm the installed endpoint certificate. D. To validate the VPN client being used. 6. An administrator wants to create a Conference Manager administrator account but would like to limit the number of conference accounts that can be generated to 30. Which statement about conference accounts is true? A. In FortiNAC-F, conference accounts can be limited by multiples of 25, so the conference administrator could create 50 accounts. B. The administrator can set a maximum of 30 conference accounts in the administrative profile for the conference manager. C. The conference account limit is defined in the onboarding conference portal. D. Conference account limits are defined in the conference guest and contractor template. 7. A network administrator is troubleshooting a network access issue for a specific host. The administrator suspects the host is being assigned a different network access policy than expected. Where would the administrator look to identify which network access policy, if any, is being applied to a particular host? A. The policy logs view. B. The connections view. C. The policy details view for the host. D. The port properties view of the host's port. 8. How can an administrator configure FortiNAC-F to normalize incoming syslog event levels across vendors? A. Configure severity mappings. B. Configure the vendor WE settings. C. Configure the security rule settings. D. Configure event to alarm mappings. 9. An organization wants to add a FortiNAC-F manager to simplify their large FortiNAC-F deployment. Which two policy types can be managed globally? Choose 2. A. Authentication. B. Endpoint compliance. C. Supplicant Easy Connect. D. Network access. 10. An administrator wants to build device profiling rules based on network traffic, but the network session view is not populated with any records. Which two settings can be enabled to gather network session information? Choose 2. A. Network traffic polling on any modeled infrastructure device. B. Firewall session polling on modeled FortiGate devices. C. NetFlow setting on the FortiNAC-F interfaces. D. Layer 3 polling on the infrastructure devices. Check the correct answers for each question. Subscribe Passert for more IT exam prep.